You are listening to the Football Diehards podcast with your hosts, Justin Lonero and Bob Harris, sponsored by DraftKings. Sign up now using promo code DIEHARDS, DIEHARDS. Make a first-time $5 deposit, and you'll receive a free $3 ticket.
Hello and welcome to the Football Diehards podcast. I'm your host, Justin Lonero, along with my co-hosts, Mr. Kyle Dvorchak and Mr. Bob Harris. Gentlemen, it is week 14. There was snow here in New England. We have gotten pounded. Season is flying by. Mr. Harris, what is going on in Albuquerque, New Mexico this evening, sir?
Just damn glad to have a job. Not everyone does. According to Ron Rivera, some of us are out hunting for work right now. Ron Rivera fired by the Carolina Panthers in a big story today. And there's a ton of other news out there, as Kyle has been posting to the website. Kyle, how are you this fine evening?
Yeah, good. Some people are out hunting for work, and some people are out hunting before work, that being Devlin and James Washington going duck hunting.
Yeah, you know, I like the bonding. It worked out well. Played a little, had one share of Washington I played, much to my glee, watching him score the touchdown. Not sure I'm expecting that every week. And we'll see what happens with James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster. Both of them still in the questionable range. Probably, I'm guessing, Smith-Schuster on the doubtful side, and maybe Conner truly questionable. Mike Tomlin said he'll try to practice today. They will stick with Devlin Hodges. If you did not hear, Gardner Minshew will be the starting quarterback for your Jacksonville Jaguars. I know that makes everyone excited. I have my jorts on as we speak. Aviators, not so much. The mustache is coming in slowly. But I've only had a couple of days. Give it another day and I'll be full Minshew. It was a miserable performance by Nick Foles in what should have been a smash matchup. Really let a lot of people down. Either you guys get burned.
Oh, yeah.
Watson
you know I
for,
did.
Who's that Watson for Foles?
All right, well, I didn't sit Watson. I mean, you are a coward if you sit Deshaun Watson, despite the matchup. Why would you do that? But in DFS, oh yes, I got burned.
What about Darnold? Who has Darnold marks on them?
We used him in that high stakes league that I consult for instead of Watson. We did sit Watson, which was, yeah. You draft players, and then you're supposed to stick with them. And you see a team like the Patriots, and you get nervous.
What is the thing that what is the most damaging thing fantasy owners do to themselves? I being as guilty as everyone else, so I'm allowed to say this. We outsmart ourselves every damn time.
We tinker.
Right, we can't leave well enough alone. And I get it with Watson though. The poor showing against the Ravens 2 weeks previous, the Patriots being pretty much. So we're gonna say one thing. Deshaun Watson can play with anyone any given week, and he'll have some duds, but probably count him as a stud. DeAndre Hopkins, he used to have a quarterback-proof card. He apparently sent that to Cortland Sutton. And Kenny Golladay, for that matter, to use this past week. While he used the matchup-proof card, he played reasonably well. Look, it was a damn good game. The thrown touchdown, DeAndre Hopkins throwing a touchdown, added to it. Stephon Gilmore, obviously still a very good player, but exciting game. And this is the things. This is how fantasy treats us. Some other news that's going to be of interest that we'll be watching. You'll want to watch heading into the weekend. Will be the Kansas City running backs, where both Darrel and Damian Williams are beat up. They signed Spencer Ware today, that being Tuesday. As Adam Teicher of ESPN is reporting, that's kind of an emergency move.
Full circle.
Yeah, it seems like Darrel is unlikely to play while Damian still has a chance. That's where things stand as of Tuesday. In the Miami neck of the woods, Kalen Ballage with his 1.8 yards is rode off on a cart into the sunset. He is on injured reserve. And Kyle, please tell us the development since then.
Oh, baby, you know who they're bringing in town. The one, the only, the Zach Zenner, going to play for every team in the NFL in one single season. He's got a limited time span to do it, but he'll knock out the playoff teams in the playoffs. For this side, I would like to note that Kalen Ballage did enter history. He is the lowest yards per attempt at south of 2 on over 70 attempts.
Yep.
And is one of the
74.
only 3 players to even go under 2 over 50 attempts. So
here comes the Patrick. Yeah, that's fantastic. And the Patrick Laird train is gaining momentum even as we speak. don't necessarily want to be on board that one, people. I'm just saying. It's possible, but not necessarily. Let's see. Oh, we had the Colts injuries were, continue. They've had issues they've had multiple issues. Paris Campbell could return this week. T.Y. Hilton, maybe not. Still waiting to see. Chester Rogers suffered a season-ending knee injury. Eric Ebron already out. Marlon Mack has been out. Look, this has been a litany of things. We'll watch this week for signs that maybe T.Y. Hilton can return. Frank Reich said on Monday that he was hopeful. Hope is cheap. Everyone should indulge themselves, including Frank Reich, but expectations should be kept to a minimum until we see some sign that Hilton can get back on the field. We'd heard things like week to week. That seems like it's going to be longer than this week. And we'll see on Paris Campbell, maybe a chance to come back. They promoted Chad Williams from the practice squad, a guy that's been lingering around and has not turned. He's like the Zach Zenner of wide receivers, I would say. Right?
I had not the slightest clue he was on Indy until like 2 seconds ago.
All right, so some other news. The Monday night game, Dalvin Cook went down so last week, like on Friday, their first day of practice, Thursday, he did not practice or he was limited with a chest issue, and we didn't know what it was. Friday came back, worked fully. Saturday, not on the injury report. Adam Thielen, meanwhile, listed as questionable initially. Thielen ruled out on Sunday, so nobody was playing him on accident like the Tyler Lockett owners who played their guy coming off the flu, and apparently it was a bad flu because he did nothing his first catchless game, and I think as a pro, or at least as a starter. But Dalvin Cook went down with an injury to the same area. The ball was punched out, and apparently it's like his clavicle. So he says he will play this week. Mm-hmm. We will see about that. It's something that we'll be tracking closely in coming days. So that'll be one to watch as the Vikings try to rebound from. Look, they made it a game. I thought it was a very exciting game, fun to watch, as almost every game is, unless it involves the Cincinnati Bengals. Oh wait, that was exciting too.
Or the Dolphins.
The Dolphins game was fun.
They're getting better.
They play, even if they lose, which they haven't been doing as often lately, they play fun football.
It is, it's fun watching it, and I've talked about this before. I like the way they're going about this. Look, there's going to be some one and done coaches this off season. I'm looking at you, Freddie Kitchens. Get your shirt ready. But I think I think when you look at Miami, I mean, everyone maybe thought the plan going in was to totally tank, and maybe it was. I mean, personnel wise, but I don't think Brian Flores is having any of that. I think he'd like to win. When you see the fake, the fake kicks. Going for touchdowns and things like that. They're trying to win. But I like the idea of taking a long-term approach. What are the teams that we look at as the big successes in the NFL? The Patriots, the Steelers over the course of time. You see a lot of stability, right? And I like to see, like a team like Miami. I think they've said, okay, here's the thing. We're going to suck for a while. We're going to get a guy who bring in, build a culture from a place that has a culture, New England, and we're going to try and copy that. But over time, nothing should be expected to happen immediately. So all these one-and-done coaches, it really bugs me because I think it's it's not a good way to achieve success, and it may take the Dolphins a while. But they're getting better, I swear.
Right. You need continuity. I feel like you need continuity, some stability, and then over time it happens because winning becomes contagious. And I think you're right about the Dolphins. I mean, we're starting to see it with Devontae Parker's is finally, right? Devontae Parker, we've been hearing about him for 5 years, maybe not that long, but he's coming into his own. They haven't had a running game since it feels like Ricky Williams. But
they've got one now. All right,
they got one. They got
one now. Yeah.
So, gentlemen, that's kind of news. Ron Rivera, we mentioned top fired. I think that, for me, for the reasons we just outlined, I think that's a mistake. But he's been there 9 years. So, I mean, I guess that, there's something to be said. And I get it. There's a new owner who would like to do things his way. Very disappointed in the last couple games. That's understandable as well. I just hate seeing a good, stable organization become unstable. You just don't know what you're getting with a head coach, according to the Arizona Cardinals or the Cleveland Browns or we could run through the litany of teams that have, struggled to find the right coach. Denver Broncos, a lot of this is tied to finding the right quarterback, it turns out, John Elway. Yep. Pay attention, young man. Maybe they have him in Drew Lock. We'll see about that. But let's jump into the slate for this week, fellows. Your expertise is needed by all the listeners. And so we're jumping to this one. I'll start out with you, Justin. Let's start with the quarterback position, please.
Up top, you're not going to get away from Lamar Jackson at this point. If you fade him, I mean, it's kind of similar to like Christian McCaffrey or Michael Thomas. It's going to hurt you. The field is going to hurt you. So this kid is doing it all. You can't stress it enough. He does it with his legs. He has pocket poise. I mean, the weather was terrible last week at San Francisco. He still had 26 DraftKings points.
It was in Baltimore.
So, excuse me. It was in Baltimore. It was a terrible day in Baltimore, but he still got it done. He was running. He rushed for over 100 yards. I mean, he was vintage Lamar Jackson. You're looking at the TV and you're going, wow, how are they playing football in this? I could see you using Patrick Mahomes in tournaments at Gillette, but this is going to be a pissed off Patriots team, and they should be. Slight discount off of Lamar Jackson. Not that interested in Patrick Mahomes, but he's as good as it gets with Lamar Jackson. I am personally looking at Aaron Rodgers, 6,800, kind of going by the wayside. And he's, there hasn't been a ton of consistency, but last week he lit up the Giants, 4 touchdowns, just vintage Aaron Rodgers. I kind of like the discount there against the Washington Redskins. You can pick on them. They are similar to the Dolphins in terms of grotesque. I'm going to pay a little down. It's going to be Deshaun Watson. I like what we saw out of Deshaun Watson at home against Denver. Lit up the Patriots. I mean, if you can light up that secondary, then you can light up any secondary. And the Denver Broncos are not the Broncos that we've seen over time. I think Watson's in a good spot. Love the price. So I will be there as well. And the last player that I'm going to talk about is Ryan Tannehill, which is hilarious. But he's sub 6K, 5,800, been very, very efficient, getting it done with his legs a little bit, not Lamar Jackson-esque, but it seems like he's not going to hurt you. And he's got a juicy matchup against Oakland. Patrick Mahomes absolutely annihilated the Raiders. I don't think that Tannehill can do that, but I don't think he's going to hurt you. So I could certainly see myself going to Ryan Tannehill. So today it's Lamar Jackson, it's Deshaun Watson, it's Aaron Rodgers, and it's Ryan Tannehill. Of course, we record on Tuesday, so I'm not going to stray too far from that list.
Oh, you're not going to stray too far from that list because we're not doing this show again. We're only doing it on Tuesday. Kyle!
All right, so at the top, in cash games, I just people didn't play Lamar Jackson last week. What are people like? They're the people are getting sharper. People are getting better at DFS. That is undoubtedly true. They still are not playing Lamar Jackson. He was so massively underpriced. It was hilarious last week. 7,400 still isn't enough for a phenomenal passer and the best rushing quarterback in the history of the NFL. I think this is the week where he goes over 1,000 yards finally. I think he's up in the 900s. So exciting to see him pass that milestone. Is Vic the only one to ever do that?
Vic is the only one so far. And I mean, there's a lot of numbers out there floating around, and you can twist it up. Pro Football Talk that has a kind of a triple-double, touchdowns, 100 yards rushing, 100 yards throwing. He's already halfway to Vic's total of that, career total on that stat. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I was talking today on the Football Die Hard show on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. You should subscribe to that and listen to that program. It's phenomenal, I'm told. It strikes me that as I think back, I was pretty high on Lamar Jackson in my season-long drafts, but I should have trusted myself more. And the thing that hit me when I really started buying into him was something that John Harbaugh said late in August. He said, this guy's going to change the way the game's played. Now, why would John Harbaugh say that? Well, for a number of reasons. Number one, Lamar Jackson's really good. But number two, he knows how that organization is bought into what this kid does. And that, again, I will stress this over and over. That's your tell here. And, I mean, it's something you want to watch going forward with Kyler Murray in Arizona. The organization has bought all in. Now, it may not work, but they need it to work, and they're going to do whatever they can to make it work. In Jackson's case, it's the scheme, it's the personnel around him, and it's a coaching staff willing to think outside the box, and that's a big deal, and it makes him a great play in season-long and DFS. I don't care how much he costs. I want some.
100%. I can't. His cost isn't even close to being at equilibrium where you would think about not playing him. Just completely annihilating. I think he's on pace to have the most fantasy points in a season, and he's only 7,400. I don't care about defense.
He does whatever he wants.
Yeah, I don't care about defense. I don't care about weather. It just nothing matters for Lamar Jackson. So I'm playing him in cash, and you can pretty much book that. Outside of that, in tournaments, I like Sam Darnold versus Miami. And the Miami runbacks, their offense is kind of really upturned as of late. They still always at some point had potential as long as Ryan Fitzpatrick's under center. But they look like legit good in these past few weeks, putting up points on the Browns and the Eagles. Not especially the Eagles, not the best defense, but they're putting up points. And the run back options are pretty much like Mike Gesicki and Devontae Parker for me. So maybe even some Patrick Laird. So I like the run back options there when you play Sam Darnold. And then on top of that, anytime you get the Bengals playing a competent team at all, I don't care who they are. I'd like to play the opposing quarterback. Didn't work out with Sam Darnold last week, but pretty much works out every other week. So Baker Mayfield for me, I think he'll go pretty overlooked, and as well as the stacks. And I'm super excited for people to play the Galaxy Brain Odell Beckham when Jarvis Landry scores more points. You love to see it if you're a tournament player. So I think that's another spot to go. Probably where a lot of my play is going to go. Also, I want to see if Tom Brady's going to be low owned. It could potentially be the game of the week because Patrick Mahomes is another player who I don't think just cares in the slightest about the defense he's playing. And I just want to tap into that game total by playing the cheaper quarterback. So that's probably a lot of where my tournament ownership's going to go, and Lamar Jackson in cash.
Right, and that makes perfect sense. So, and I will just say on Baker Mayfield, a little bit of a hand issue. Sounds like it won't be a problem. We'll see as they start practicing. It's something to watch as the week progresses, but it does sound like he'll be fine. He took some medicine. It involved a needle, I'm pretty sure. Anyhow, running backs, Kyle.
Yeah, so running back this week, we're getting a sweet $200 discount on Christian McCaffrey, only at 17 points last week, but that's like a legit floor game since I think it was like week 2 or 3 against the Bucs. He had an actual not good game, but legit floor game at this point for him is 17 points. So when you have that kind of floor, yeah, I'm still gonna buy in. And they came close scoring at the end with like multiple Christian McCaffreys inside the 5 or whatever. Didn't happen. So if he gets that, it's another 20+ point game. And then Alvin Kamara, super cheap. DraftKings is a staunch defense matters website. And I love that because it makes Alvin Kamara 7K and it makes Michael Thomas 8 point something. Both those guys, I'm trying to find ways to get all of these guys in, and I'm looking at maybe an Ian Thomas free square at tight end to try and help fit that in. But I just think paying up at running back this week to McCaffrey and to Kamara, both underpriced. Patrick Laird 4,100. I saw a beat saying they basically expect it to be sort of the same split they had last week. Not a ton of Zach Zenner, so we'll see going forward what the split is there. But also Laird doesn't need to get there on the ground at all. He's just he's not that efficient of a rusher, but he's a great pass catcher, honestly. Dating back to college, he's a phenomenal pass catcher. And now he's going to be on the field more. So I think that's all you could ask for out of a 4,100 running back, just like a discount James White, who was elite super mega James White on Monday night or whatever. So
they needed him to be. Yeah. They needed him to be too.
For sure.
But I think that's a good play. And as always, Leonard Fournette 7,800 up there in top of the league. I think he's second now. He's been bouncing back with Dalvin Cook for second and third in total touches on the year. Last week he got 11 targets. The week before that, 12 targets. He is chubby Christian McCaffrey, and you love to play that at 7,800. So that's probably where I'm looking at for a lot of my running backs. I'm gonna have a tight core running backs as always this week.
Yeah, against the Chargers, that doesn't scare me either. Justin, who do you like at that position? The running backs in particular.
Yeah, you're gonna stick with Christian McCaffrey. I mean, like you said, it's probably seen his worst, which is a lot of running backs' best in fantasy land, which is 17 points last week. So Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook have been outstanding in 2019, and there's no reason to stray away from Dalvin Cook either. It looks like he's going to play. I'll probably take the discount there. You look at Derrick Henry, and he is priced appropriately, 8,200, and the guy has gone week 10, 188 yards on the ground, week 12, almost 160. Last week, 150, but there's no involvement in the passing game, and I think that scares me. Every week, it's full PPR site, DraftKings. But my God, you look at Derrick Henry's numbers. Talk about being the identity of your team. That's exactly what Derrick Henry is. So he's priced up. I'll tell you, his ceiling is nearly as high as anybody's at this point, aside from Christian McCaffrey. So I could see myself going there. Devontae Freeman is projecting well. I like his price. I like his involvement. He's back. He's involved in the passing game. I'll probably have some Devontae Freeman, which does not say a ton at this point. Josh Jacobs is popping in some models right now. I think we know what we get every week out of Josh Jacobs, kind of a volume back, a little bit involved in the passing game. Not much, but the price is right. And I'm looking at the vanilla optimals as we speak. One play that's jumping out at me is Darius Geis, 4,900. 4,900, right? You got 12. You had 30 DraftKings points last week, almost 31 DraftKings.
And not very many carries, right?
That's it. 10 carries, 2 receptions. Like, Bill Callahan, get him the football. Let's see what the organization drafted. I mean, we know he's had injuries. So if I was promised that Darius Geis would get the football 20 times this week 14, he's probably dollar for dollar the best running back. But they're probably going to be trailing. So, the game script might hurt Geis. But I think it's time where you unleash a running back like this, see what the future holds. I think if he's healthy, he is going to be one of the better backs in the game. Not a lot of love for Nick Chubb. He's projecting well. What we're seeing out of Kareem Hunt is slightly similar to what we saw in Kansas City a couple of years ago, so it's scary. There's a committee there. I suppose if I was going to have one of the Browns backs, I would take Hunt, and that's not saying much at 6,600. And it's a similar situation with Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler, and it might be a situation to avoid. So tonight it's Geis, it's Christian McCaffrey, Devontae Freeman, and Josh Jacobs. But again, it's only Tuesday, so things will change.
My prime takeaway from that assessment there is Justin Lonero is easily frightened. Now, moving on. But beyond that, I do like those plays. So go ahead, Justin, jump into your wide receivers right now.
You're getting a discount this week. We're seeing Michael Thomas right around 10K. And he's getting the 49ers this week. I don't care. It's kind of like Christian McCaffrey. You get the same feel when we talk about Lamar Jackson. Like, I'm going to want some Michael Thomas. He's in sync with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in Drew Brees. At home, 8,300, a lock for 10 targets, close to 100 yards. I don't care that it's the 49ers. I'm going to have myself some Michael Thomas. I think he's damn near a lock for 20 DraftKings points, regardless of the opponent. So, again, same feel when you talk about Jackson, Christian McCaffrey. Feels safe. Love the price. Davante Adams is another guy. Loved him last week. He was underpriced, kind of coming into his own. This is the Davante Adams that we anticipated heading into the season. 10-plus targets every week. He's going to get in the end zone. I mean, when Aaron Rodgers leans on you, it's a similar rapport that Drew Brees has with Michael Thomas. So you're even getting a slight discount there. I'd love to have them both in my lineups. And another guy I could talk about wide receivers all day long. DeAndre Hopkins, you're getting even more of a discount. Arguably the best wide receiver in the game. He'll probably see Chris Harris. This is a home game for the Texans. I don't care. I think for 7,400, his floor is probably 15 points. His ceiling is 30, 35 points. So I'm going to take DeAndre Hopkins at 7,400 all the time. Am I going to play him in cash games? Probably not. I think he's a damn good tournament play. And I'm going to go down a little more. It's going to be Julian Edelman, DJ Moore. We know what we're getting out of these guys at this point in time. Julian Edelman, guys, is just – you want to talk about a model of consistency, dependability. That is Julian Edelman. He's also just about the only option in New England, which is scary. 33-year-old, 5'9", former college quarterback is your number one wide receiver. But he gets it done. He's durable. He's Julian Edelman. Love him, 7,100. And Kyle's boy, DJ Moore, I'm there. I'm there. I bought in this offseason. I think he is emerging as one of the best wide receivers in the game, top 15, top 20. And we're seeing that each and every week now. You can depend on him for nearly 10 targets, probably close to 100 yards and a touchdown. So 7K. This is a week where if you can find some diamonds in the rough at running back, then you can land yourself 4 premium wide receivers in some of your lineups. And Galladay's discounted. We love Kenny Galladay, and Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry are discounted. So it's a week where
you can play every single wide receiver on the planet.
If I could, then I would. It's a position you could diversify your lineups with, and it's from what I'm seeing now, it's kind of it is soft in that department. So there's some elite there, and again, things change as the week progresses.
Kyle, any wide receivers that Justin left off his lips?
No, there are none, but I'll emphasize some that I like. Michael Thomas at the very top, 8,300. Why would you price him down? He's so good, and I get like he had a bust Thanksgiving game, but it was still like his floor is still so high. He had a 10-point game. Just like he didn't get the touchdown, he didn't get a ton of yardage on his 6 catches, but he still has like a 10-point floor as a receiver. Like he is truly just breaking the mold for what we project receivers at. So Michael Thomas, trying to get him in my cash games when I can. I wouldn't make a priority over McCaffrey, Lamar Jackson, but if I can find the value to get him in as my third high-priced player, I am doing it. Beyond that, I like DeAndre Hopkins' call. I think Kenny still is interesting, just wildly low price at $3,700 for a dude that we saw can break open any large play. And Kiki Kute was, I believe, a healthy scratch. I know he's a scratch. I'm pretty sure he's a healthy scratch. Dude, how the mighty have fallen. Oh, my. People were very excited for him, and for a good reason. He played very well last year in limited capacity, and I don't know, man. Just some players coaches hate. I don't have a good reason for it. But that puts Kenny Stills on the field for well over half the team snaps. And when you're on the field with Deshaun Watson that much, running those deep routes, anytime you play Watson, I think it's a good idea to stack him with Kenny Stills and DeAndre Hopkins because their prices. Like, you can get Stills so cheap, he just needs one play, then Hopkins can go off for the rest of the game. In my Sam Darnold builds, Robbie Anderson at 5,100, I have projected as one of the better values against an awful Miami defense, let alone the fact that I think he's just got the highest upside of any of these Miami receivers. And coming off of his best game of the year by his best game in volume, by a pretty wide margin, got 10 targets, hasn't even hit 9 this year, and he's been under 6 for 5 games or so. So getting some peaking Robbie Anderson right now is what I love to see against an awful Miami defense. Beyond that, I think it's always smart to play at least one of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And I think they're going to probably split ownership again this week. Like, neither of them crushed last week. But I think it's always smart to kind of have both of them above average in terms of if you're running multiple lineups, like playing more than the field on those guys, because I think they get suppressed ownership. Like, neither of them get gaudy ownership because it's the decision by indecision or whatever, where it's just hard to pick one. So you go neither, despite the fact that we know on a weekly basis these guys have crazy ceilings. It's just they don't always hit it. So I like those guys. And I think the interesting thing is I want to see how much John Ross is going to get on the field. He's going to be 0 owned, despite the fact that he has game breaking upside. If he ends up, because they said they expect him to play this week. If we get a full slate of snaps from him, I would love to run him, bring him back against Baker Stacks.
Look at you go! And by the way, I'm just seeing on my Twitter that DeAndre Hopkins and Stephon Gilmore are still going at it, only on Twitter. Man, that's a lot of wide receivers. Narrow it down. Justin, give me your top 2 plays
at wide receiver.
Yeah.
It'll be Michael Thomas. It's probably going to be Devontae Adams in terms of my comfortability week 14. But there's 38 that I like. So
no, there's 97 you like. You only got the 38.
I love the Robbie Anderson call. I do love the Robbie Anderson call. This is kind of like what we saw last year with Sam Darnold. High A-dot guys. The deep ball was working with Robbie Anderson last year. So that's kind of what Robbie Anderson does. He is that home run hitter. Love the price.
I wonder if we're going to see that same kind of late stretch run, although I would suggest games against Baltimore and Pittsburgh after the Miami game are not going to work necessarily in the Jets' favor, nor is Adam Gase. That guy's nuts.
Let me hop in here real quick. A note for the listeners. If you're trying to, we talked about a lot of receivers, and I think it's because receivers have a much wider range of outcomes on a weekly basis. If you're trying to narrow down your receivers, just double stack with your quarterback. People are still, single stacking is pretty common now, but double stacking is kind of the skeleton key to getting a lot of upside. Last week, it was double stacking a receiving running back, Carson Wentz and Miles Sanders with Alshon Jeffrey. But that's how you narrow down your receiver pool, is just run two receiving options, whether it be receivers, tight ends, or receiving running back, and then run it back with a receiver from the opposing team typically. That's really how I narrow down my receiver pool, is I'm going to try and get Michael Thomas in as much as possible, then I'll run a jet stack with Robbie Anderson, Le'Veon Bell, and run it back with somebody from the opposing team. So that's really how you should be narrowing down your receiver pool.
That makes sense. Give me your tight ends, Kyle.
So if we end up like Greg Olsen suffered a pretty tough-looking concussion, I don't know if he'll play this week. If he doesn't, Ian Thomas at 2,500 on the dot, pretty much just lock him in. He's just so cheap, and we saw last season played sporadically while Greg Olsen was battling multiple injuries, I believe. And towards the end of the season, he actually got pretty hot. Had a few fantasy viable games, like 3 or 4 out of the last 5. Actually got into a rhythm, so I don't mind some Ian Thomas at min price paying up. I think we've had a couple of bad weeks from Hunter Henry, but he's still like one of the better tight ends in the league. Just hasn't had a ceiling game in a while, and that's kind of what you look for, players getting the volume. Until last week, which is kind of a slower pace down spot, had like 9 targets, 7 targets, 10 targets. Like, he's just he's what you expect out of Hunter Henry. Just hasn't quite had the ceiling game yet. That's sort of what I look for, is that type of game. And I think it'd be interesting to run him back with Leonard Fournette just as a secondary stack. On top of that, I think, man, the San Francisco-New Orleans game is going to be chalky because everybody's kind of cheap. George Kittle, 5,900, not a bad way to run it back. I'm not sure how popular he'd be. So I think that's always an option, especially last week. Very dud performance at 3.4 points, but he's still George Kittle, just like we talked about Hunter Henry. Just kind of buy low on really good players is kind of the key to having good tournament success. Beyond that, I don't know, it's probably a lot of where I'm going. If I'm playing any Houston, Noah Fant kind of saw some work cut out by, I think it was Jeff Hireman, but still running these deep 8-out routes for a tight end. Last week he ran 3 routes at an 8-out of like 12.7, I think. That's a lot of upside for a cheap-ish tight end. It's a lot of upside for any tight end on a per-route basis. You typically get tight ends running sub-10 8-out routes. So if you can get a young athletic guy running deep routes with a fresh quarterback who is probably better than Brandon Allen and Joe Flacco because they were both very bad, I don't mind that. So that's probably a lot of where I'm going. I really do think like the Hunter Henry, Leonard Fournette stack is going to be one I have in multiple tournament lineups, so I like that as I talk about it.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see if Drew Lock, some of these guys can come out and have these one-game flashes. And a lot of his game, let's face it, was based on some amazing plays, at least one amazing catch by Cortland Sutton. Justin, your tight ends, please.
It's going to be Kittle. It'll be George Kittle, sub 6K. I love the pricing. I mean, I feel like it's a little soft this week as I dig into this, but up top, it's going to be George Kittle. I think that when he's healthy, the rapport is now there with Jimmy G. Some, volatility in terms of, let's face it, gentlemen, it's a sea of mediocrity, so there is not a lot of stability. But Kittle, sub 6K, love it. I also love, I like Kyle's call on Hunter Henry. He always scares me. He is not Antonio Gates. I think this Chargers team has been mysterious to say the least. I think Hunter Henry is a guy that, can get anywhere from 10 targets to, like we saw last week, 3 against the Broncos. So it's scarce to see him perform at like a George Kittle level. Anyways, digging deeper down, see a mediocrity. I'm liking the Mike Gesicki's and the Ryan Griffins of the world. 4K for Gesicki. I mean, this is a guy that tons of best balls. I must have drafted him in 5 or 10 best balls. And he's turning it up now. I think the lack of weaponry in Miami is the reason why. Back-to-back touchdowns, weeks 12 and 13, 7 targets each week. I'm liking that price. I also like Ryan Griffin, they gave him that extension, and I think he was as surprised as we were when we saw it. Another guy we don't know who he is officially, older tight end, but not a ton of weaponry on the Jets, so I could see myself going there. I could also see Travis Kelce, 6,200. I mean, this is a guy we can pay 7K, 75K we've paid for before. I think they're going to take away Tyreek Hill. They do a good job of taking the wide receivers away. I think Kelce could make a splash in New England, but I can't envision myself spending too much on tight ends this week. It is the sea of mediocrity, and my money's going to go towards wide receivers tonight.
You could only have 7 at a time, though, so be careful there.
That's right.
What about defenses, Justin?
I usually start at the bottom when I look, and I try not to pay too little. But one team that's jumping out at me is the Bucs at home against the Indianapolis Colts and Jacoby Brissett. This is a Bucs team. Week 12 against the Falcons, they had a touchdown, a pick. defensive fumble recovery, 16 DraftKings points. Last week at Jacksonville, just absolutely went ham. 5 sacks and another touchdown. They seem underpriced. They play well at home. 2,300 if I'm going to go way down. I can't envision myself paying for the Packers or the Vikings this week. I will find myself dabbling in the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have been on for weeks, and their prices come up. But this is a unit that has seemed to get it done every single week. I mean, whether there's sacks, there's touchdowns, there's picks, and they're not like a flashy Steelers defense that we've seen in the past. Just a tough, gritty Mike Tomlin defense. They're going to go to Arizona. We know that team has a propensity to turn the ball over. They run a lot of plays. We like that. So I can 3,500. I like the Steelers in tournaments. I was looking at the Patriots and in some of their game logs and their numbers. And while I love them at Gillette Stadium, they are human, and they have come back to earth since that Baltimore game against Lamar Jackson. Not a lot of flash in Houston. They didn't do a ton against Dak Prescott. They contained him at home, and the weather was terrible. But I think this is a team that is kind of coming back down to earth. And against Patrick Mahomes at home is a little bit scary, where the price is alluring at $3K. I don't know if I'll go there. So tonight it's the Bucs paying way down. I'm going to spend a little bit of cash. It's going to be the Steelers.
And Kyle?
Yeah, that's a very good pickup on the Bucs defense. They're got to be, I think they're the cheapest home favored defense. At 2,300 is insanely cheap for a home favored defense. And also, interestingly, they do actually have in the past, let's see here, past season on the dot, they have a slightly positive correlation with Chris Godwin, and that was in the optimal perfect lineup 2 or 3 weeks ago whenever Kyle Allen went off. That was something I was on and was very profitable. I'll be running straight back to that. I think that's probably the best defensive play of the week. Beyond that, I do think it's interesting if you need the salary savings, if you can't get 2,300, 2,100, if you're not running Cleveland stacks, you do, Cleveland has been up until recently and even I guess last week as well, ending the game on a turnover, very turnover prone under Baker Mayfield and very sack prone as well. So Cincinnati defense against Cleveland, mostly a tournament play. I just think the Bucs defense is easily my pick here. If I want to pay up, which I'm probably not awfully inclined to do, maybe the Jets defense against Miami, you could run Le'Veon Bell Jets defense, especially if Sam Darnold ends up being kind of a popular play, Carson Wentz was moderately popular last week, and it's been printing money if you play full-on game stacks against Miami. So if that's going to be popular, maybe the way to leverage that would be to go Jets defense. Le'Veon Bell would be an interesting one, but I think I'm going to have a really tight defensive unit this week as well.
The Dolphins getting better, but still not good. It's the low bar.
Not at all. Devontae Parker is, though. How about Devontae Parker?
Some of the guys that we talked about, Parker has been amazing. Finally, living up to the hype that,
my dynasty teams, they've been waiting. I was right all along, and I'm so excited.
About a decade.
Yeah, it's been a big deal, but he's been. I thought I was looking for there was a next gen stat. I think he had more catches in 1 yard in a tight window. I think he has leading that this year. I'm looking up the stat right now.
It's actually pretty impressive, and yeah, it's it's helped certainly that he has been they were without Preston Williams now. They're without was it Jakeem Grant? They've just had a rash of injuries at that position, but he has still been efficient, like you said. It's not just volume that's propelled him to where he is, which is impressive.
The thing that he does is, high pointing the ball, out physicaling your defensive back. So he leads the NFL with 4 tight window receiving touchdowns, less than a yard of separation. He's the 4th player this season with multiple tight window receiving touchdowns in a single game. So, he's just finally turned into the guy that they drafted him to be. And so kudos, and for a team that's, is supposedly tanking and moving on past all these guys, that they stuck with him is a credit to them. One other stat that caught my eye this week was Derrick Henry's last 16 games. My buddy Chris Wessling at NFL.com put it out. And it's 1,765 rushing yards and 20 touchdowns over his last 16 games.
Dude's a killer, and I actually think he'd be it's almost worked out, I think 2 weeks ago or whatever, maybe last week, running him with Ryan Tannehill stacks, because he does not get the ball in the receiving game very often, but And he's not a fantastic route runner, not like a great pass catcher. But if you can just get him matched up against corners, the dude is a freak. Like, he is so incredibly athletic that he will just destroy your corners. So he can go, like we saw it earlier in the 75-yard catch. And he did it last year as well. So I think he's actually kind of a cheeky, interesting stack with Ryan Tannehill.
Right. And then Tannehill playing lights out. I mean, he's really improved. Sure. That offense has improved mightily. So let's wrap it up, kids. Great stuff. And I think as I wrote down my list of wide receivers, it took 7 sheets of paper. So somewhere the paper company thanks you, Justin.
Yeah, it's a position you can really diversify yourself. And I am seeing soft pricing this week. So in certain regards, although Devontae Parker, gentlemen, is like $7K. I mean, which is
should be,
and he deserves it. He deserves it for certain. It's taken a while. I'll tell you, the Patriots would love to have a guy like Devontae Parker at this point in time. Just desperate for offense, to say the least.
A lot of rumors flying around about the Patriots, and I'm telling you, the Antonio Brown one, Robert Kraft will never give that guy a penny again as long as he lives. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, he feels slighted, but boys, they lack weaponry, and it is evident, and the morale is shot. It's just, what can you do? And again, I just mentioned when we're talking defenses that the defenses, they're human. I mean, they're human. They're not, what they were the first few weeks of the season. I mean, they're going to come back down to earth. You need to score points in this league now. But hey, week 14. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. There's been a great season. We're going to keep the ball rolling, Kyle. Trying to make some money this week. And again, we are sponsored by DraftKings, which is why we talk about them every single week. I'll be at the game week 17 against the Bills. See Gillette Stadium. It should be festive. That's the whole, care less about the opponent, but I want to see Gillette Stadium with some Santa and some lights and have a couple lobster rolls for you guys. Wish you could attend with me.
Yeah, well, you'll get to watch a really fun quarterback and Tom Brady, so that'll be fun. And then, so exciting for you, exciting week in DFS. But I do agree, pricing's kind of soft. So good week in DFS, and you've got some fun activities coming up. You can check all of our stuff out at footballdiehards.com. Justin's got Digging Through the Crates. I've got cash and tournament game breakdowns. Bob has the rest of the site. Everything else on the site is his. But for myself, at Kyle Tweets here, for Bob at Football Die Hard, and for Justin and Justin Lonero, everyone, thanks for